Hello, welcome to Exotic Ghana UK, Yorkshire Weekly, and the weather continues to be really good here, nice and mild, lots of sunshine, and we've had a little bit of rain, although we could do with more to keep the plants really topped up, but I can't grumble. It's been really great, the weather, and it meant everything has continued to grow, and we've had no frosts. We're definitely not going to get any frosts now, so things that were planted out a bit earlier have really motored now, and everything in the garden is ready to really gear up into summer, and we're getting close to that stage now where everything's planted out, even the very tender plants. So I planted out my Ensete Hanaiba bananas, well, most of them a week or two ago, earliest I've ever done it, and in this episode I'll be planting another couple of specimens that I've still got to plant out, and we'll be looking at the actual ground where it's still early days in terms of plants coming back. So dahlias and cannas and begonias and colocasias that have been in the ground over winter, they're all starting to grow now, but we're still waiting for them to get into full growth. So when we're planting out other plants, we've got to be careful that we aren't digging up plants that are just getting ready from the ground level upwards. So we'll have a little look around the garden. So this colossal plant, as you probably know, is Gunnera manicarta. Not Gunnera tinctoria, which is a smaller version, but Gunnera manicarta, which is the biggest herbaceous leaved plant you probably can grow in the UK and the northern climate. And the leaves are absolutely huge on my plant, but they get much bigger than this. So this is probably an average size specimen. It's been in the ground about 4 years now. The leaves are about 2 meters across, and the stems of the leaves are approaching 2 meters tall as well. And it needs a big area, it needs lots of water, and it needs lots of feed. People do ask, what do you feed this plant? Well, I put basically a bag of chicken manure around the base in late April, and that will feed it throughout the season, because it slowly breaks down that feed, and it continuously feeds it for weeks and weeks. So I can still see a pile of the manure on the surface now, so that will slowly break down over the summer months and keep this topped up with feed at a nice even rate for quite a long time. And the leaves, as you can see, nice deep green colour, and they're still expanding, still getting bigger. And this, just a few weeks ago, it was nothing. It was just, the crown at the ground with last year's dead leaves over it, and over the last 6 weeks it's produced these absolutely enormous leaves. It's a plant I wouldn't be without in the garden. As long as you've got enough space, I would definitely recommend this plant. Mentioned earlier, it's time to plant the last remaining Ensete Hanaiba bananas. So I've dug a nice big hole in this good humus rich soil that I've added, well, it's got clay soil, nice, lots of manure added over the years. And to plant it, you can see it's got a good root system on this. I'm just got to remove last year's old leaf bases from the base, and then it's just a matter of placing it in the hole. And I've planted quite a lot across the garden, as you can see. So to the left I've got an Ensete Montpelliardii, and this is an Ensete ventricosum Hanaiba that I'm planting. It's unfurled one big leaf so far this season, and it won't be long before it's unfurling far more. So I'm just basically putting the soil around it and firming it in with my hands, and there you are, making sure it's straight, a nice planted Hanaiba banana. So this year I want to completely redesign this bed. It's a triangular shaped bed, and it's completely facing south, so it gets lots of sun all day long, and plants are planted in here benefit from that. So we've got the Cerifera palm in one corner, we've got a Cycas revoluta, and we've got lots and lots of colocasia pink chinas at the front, where it's a little bit more shady with the other plants in front of it as the sun comes around. But this bed, I have to water a lot for the colocasias and also the gingers here. The Cerifera doesn't mind, and I want to sort of reduce my watering for this part of the garden. So we're going to remove all the colocasia pink chinas here, and we're going to plant more drought tolerating plants here. So today's job is to actually dig up all these colocasias, pot them up, weed this area because it's a bit of a mess after winter, and sort of look what else we've got here and think about moving some plants and reintroducing or introducing plants from other areas of the garden that are more drought tolerant and place them here where they get full sun and they won't mind if they don't get watered too often.
The Fargesia bamboos have been shooting for a few weeks now, and now it's time to have a look, and we can see that we've got Phyllostachus bamboos starting to shoot as well. These normally shoot sort of late May all the way through to July. This is quite an early one, and I expect most will be shooting, like I said, in June and July, like the Phyllostachus vivax.
Now this is one of my tree ferns, Dicksonia antarctica, and pretty much all the leaves you can see in the middle and surrounding areas are last year's leaves that have come through really well, and I won't be cutting these off because they look in amazing condition, so there's no need to cut them off. If they were completely frazzled and brown, then I would be cutting them off. And you can see in the centre we've got the new unfurling leaves for 2022, and we've got a good 20 or so unfurling leaves here, so it's a nice thick heavy crown on this plant, really healthy. And a really important thing to do, especially as it's been pretty dry over the last month or two, is to keep watering these, so at least 2 or 3 times a week. And you know, you can go over the top if you want and water them every day just to keep them in tip-top condition. And I'll be watering these on my dripper system, like I said, 3 or 4 times a week. So at this time of year, at the end of my garden, we have my true exotic beds. They look a bit ropey, they don't have much colour yet or much foliage at all, apart from, as you can see, lots of weeds. And the reason these beds are further down the garden is so that you don't see these in winter and spring, because they don't come into their own until summer and then into autumn. But at this time of year I will be adding plants to this area, but before I do that I have to be careful that I'm not digging up plants that are getting ready to moat it into growth for this season. So yes, got loads of weeds to do, loads of weeds to actually pull up here. So hundreds of these annual weeds. Thankfully not too many perennial weeds in here, although I do see some seedlings here of thorns, blackberries. But we do have lots of plants here that I want to keep in the ground. So we've got loads of colocasias. So the colocasia pink chinas, like this one at the front. There's probably, you know, about, if you look carefully over this bed, there's probably well over 100 individual plants just dotted around, including tiny ones like these here, and then bigger ones at the front. But we also have other plants that we want to keep in this bed. So we have got this dark-leaved plant here, surrounded by yet more weeds, but this is a nice dahlia. Stays in the ground all winter and comes back in May and June, and it won't take long for this to actually get to a full-size plant. And I know this is only, what, 10 centimetres at the moment. I know next month this will be up and flowering, because it flowers by the end of June, this early flowering dahlia. So this will cover this area. These colocasias will cover all this area here. So actually, if you plant in here, you've got to be careful you're not over planting, because these plants will quickly get rather large. We've also got things like the begonias down there, so I keep my begonia bonfire in the ground, and that's come back now for 6-7 years, and that's emerged quite well. Nice clump over there, it's bulked up. We've also got eucomis over there, so the big pineapple lilies, more dahlias as well. I can see got this little palm tree here that grew from seed, and behind me we've got gingers. We've got Hedychium gingers sort of growing under the hedge line now here, so they've gone that way. Really I want them to come out and grow this way. And I've also got a couple of cannas just behind it as well. So although it looks a bit of a mess and untidy at the moment, once I've given this a quick weed over, I'll feed it. So I'll put some chicken manure all over this area, and then give it 2 or 3 weeks. We'll have lots of foliage, and then next month we'll actually have some blooms as well with the dahlias and the begonias. Thank you for watching this edition of Exotic Gardening UK. Join me next week where we're doing more in the garden.